SpaceBourne 2 is a space shooter RPG with an impressive array of features and things to do. Now, the in-game video tutorials are great and very, very helpful, but they do leave a little to be desired. There is so much about this game that you are just not told about. So many little nuances and features that are not covered. And in this video, I hope to share with you some of the ones that I think I wish I knew before I played SpaceBourne 2. Starting off with loot. Now, the first thing you're going to be doing in SpaceBourne 2 is probably shooting down some enemy ships. What the game doesn't tell you, however, is how to loot them. In fact, it does appear that there isn't any loot from ships. Well, there is. All you need to do is hit H, go to the little crate icon in the top right, and then select the crates. Send probe. You can merge them if there are multiple crates. Make sure you scan the cargo, select all, and then send the probe to go and collect them. And that's how you loot ships in space. Now, obviously, ground loot is a little bit more obvious than that, and you don't need to be told about that one. That's self-explanatory. But that's how you loot ships from space. Next up, you might see these little pod catcher type things in trade stations and stuff. And it's a little confusing about how they work. The description basically says that they capture stabilized pods. Okay, but it doesn't tell you how to actually stabilize a pod. Well, it's quite simple, really. When you see a pod floating around in space after a little battle, hold right mouse onto the pod until it's stabilized. It can be a little tricky, a little easier the closer you are to the pod, but don't get too close or they will warp away. Once stabilized, you can then fire the pod catcher from one of your consumable slots, whatever the corresponding number is, and off it will go and collect a little spaceman for you to then trade in to any station with one of these terminals. And then you can just give them over for some money. Nice, easy, quick money maker. Next up is you can actually set routes from contracts. You don't need to go into the galaxy map and find the system. You can do it straight from the contract itself. So under contracts, have the one you want selected, and go to this little set route button down here. It will actually set the route for you. You can then head off to the Stargate and go straight there. Nice little time saver. Next up is upgrade often. It sounds obvious, I suppose, when you talk about it, but the story in the game has you kind of gallivanting along quite quickly, and you can very easily just forget to really upgrade your ship. You get given a whole new ship halfway through, but it's always good to check markets and stations to see if there is a bigger, better weapon. As you progress in the story, the enemies get harder and harder, so it's best to try and keep on top of your level and your gear, and you might have to go off and do some side missions. But build up enough money to buy upgrades or find them during missions and equip them. Keep your ship upgraded and top tier of your level. Because if you don't, you're going to find yourself in a firefight where it's a lot harder than you're perhaps used to. And things might just get away from you. You might also find in some stations you can buy ships, but you might also realize that it seems to be the same sort of ships over and over again. You might be looking for something a little specific. Make sure you join the guilds and check their markets out as well, because you can find specialist ships in the guilds. For example, here at the mining guild, you can buy a carrier type ship, which is fantastic for carrying lots of ore. Next up, did you know that you can fly on planets too? I mean, obviously you can take the ship down on planets. That's a thing, but you don't have to walk around. Hit G and you fly like Superman. And then just hit G again to land back on the ground and carry on. Honestly, this has saved my feet so many miles. Next up, when you are upgrading your perks and your talents, if you get enough points to upgrade Adventurer, go straight for this intelligence perk, because upgrading Adventure or earning experience in Adventure is a lot harder than the other ones. So this perk gains 10% experience from any other perk and gives it to Adventurer. So you can level up Adventurer without actually having to do the mining or the scanning things that give you a pittance of XP for the Adventurer tree. When you get to your faction and you start adding members as soldiers, you don't actually need to put them in a squad in order to train them or get them in experience. Double click the soldier and you can see what types of freelance missions they're doing. You can set them to ground, or space, or research. At the time of recording, research doesn't do anything, so generally you want to set them to either space or ground. because then you can send them over to do all of the mail contracts that you get through the mail system, which earn you even more members into your faction. Now, at some point in the game, you're going to be able to set the constitution of your faction, or, well, what kind of faction it's going to be, whether it's going to be justice, order, or chaos. Now, what the game doesn't tell you is that when you do choose whatever path your faction is taking, it doesn't actually apply it to your faction. You have to go into the Constitution tab of your faction menu and set the values in there to what you want your faction to be. For example, I chose Justice. My faction is currently on the path of Order, and that's because all these settings down the right-hand side were not set at all. So make sure you go in there after you set your faction up and set the Constitution to how you actually want it to be. The final one for you today, ladies and gents, is all about mining. Mining for me was a little bit confusing. I didn't really know how to start. First of all, join the mining guild. Easy enough. You get given a mining laser, but then it's on about ships and my sectors and mining lasers and all that stuff, and it can be a little intimidating. There's not much information on it. But don't worry, you can actually start mining straight away with just your hand miner. This little thing, if you hit tab when you're out on foot, can mine through asteroids, rock, and then you just set it to power to eat through rock, or you set it through efficiency in order to pick up ore. So you can start mining straight away and earning lots and lots of money, especially if you find this green stuff here. You can also mine on planets as well. It's not just asteroid fields. If you go to a planet, look for any point on a planet using a warp drive called Pit of something. Head down there and head inside the mine. Once you're in there, you can find these little outcrops that you can dig through, and you can also mine them out with your hand tool. And you can also find some pretty valuable stuff down there if you're lucky. But to be honest, guys, mining the asteroids is a no-brainer. It's quicker, it's easier, and ultimately you do actually end up with more stuff. So although it's nice to go down to a planet and have that option, there's very little reason to do that at this time. Anyway, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Nice short video of the 10 things that I wish I knew before playing SpaceBourne 2. Now, I do hope that you found at least one of these things useful and helpful to you. Maybe something you didn't already know, or maybe you knew them all already. Maybe you know even more. If so, I want to hear from you down in the comments below. You share your thoughts. What have you learned from playing SpaceBourne 2, and what do you think others can benefit from? Let me know. Also, if there's any that you didn't know, do let me know as well, because it's always good to get a little bit of feedback. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, I'd appreciate a little cheeky like. And if you want to hear for more from me, I'd appreciate a little sub as well. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.